A couple days ago, I asked you guys to send me all of your AC Valhalla questions for a huge Q&A, and oh my god, you guys listened. You sent me over 300 comments on my YouTube community post, so that's what we're doing today. We're going through almost every single comment. I mean, I don't know how many we're going to be able to get to realistically in a single video, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to answer as many Valhalla questions as I possibly can. Really quickly, in case you guys missed it, I've uploaded 3 interviews with key developers on Valhalla: Darby McDevitt, Jessica Maher, and most recently Raphael Lacoste. I also uploaded my really long preview of Valhalla, pretty much the final one before the game comes out, so make sure you check those out on the channel. All right, let's get started with Muted Paladin. They ask, how long is the main story and how long is the entire game with side quests? Short answer, I have 0 clue. If I had to ballpark estimate this, I would say like 80 to 100 hours at minimum for everything. And that's probably lowballing it, actually. I'd say if you're going to include side quests, it's at least a 100-hour-long game. It just feels like there's so much content packed in. I barely scratched the surface in one area, and I played for 6 hours. And we're going to go to different realms. I mean, there's so much more to this game. They're adding more content and DLC. There's going to be so much to do, so I would expect a really long game. OG King Khan asks, in Valhalla, is there a way to use the Hidden Blade in combat instead of just assassinations? Did Ubisoft make this true now? Short answer, no. There is not a way to do that. There is a little move. You can hold LB to pull off a special ability with whatever is in that slot, and if you leave that slot empty on your Eivor, then you'll get this unarmed, like, little quick jab. I don't think it's going to be a very good way to, pull off kills, so I wouldn't expect much from that, but it's possible. It's not like the older games, though. Fareed asks, when Eivor cloaked in there is a really big cape appears behind Eivor's back, can we remove the cape? Please tell me. No, you can't remove the cape, at least from what I saw. Are there one-handed swords? We haven't seen any, and I want to do sword and axe combo. Yes, there are, Talha, yeah, there absolutely are one-handed swords. I've seen some in gameplay, not in mine personally, but I know that they exist. Reported Kid asks, is there a 100% counter in order to track your progress in the game and collectibles? I didn't see this. I think you're asking like in the form of the older games, and I didn't see it exactly like that. But what I can tell you is that it's going to be easy to track your stuff with the activities in the bottom right corner when you're on the map screen. This is like a prevalent thing. You're always looking at this. Spit33 asks, are they going to bring back the ability to skin swap weapons and outfits? I haven't seen this for myself, so I'm not actually positive about this, and I would see a reason why Ubisoft Montreal would go away with that ability from Odyssey, just to kind of keep the experience more grounded. I haven't seen that yet. Brian asks 3 questions. Good job, Brian. He asks, will you be able to wear a hood without a cloak? Ooh, I don't know about this one. I'm honestly not sure. Does the hood cloak have to come off when you're caught and enter combat? Yes, it does. What legacy outfits are you looking forward to or hoping to see? I want to see all of them personally. I would love to see Edward. Edward Kenway would be an awesome legacy outfit. We haven't seen that yet, I don't think, in the little teaser reveal that showed off a bunch of legacy outfits. So I want to run around as Edward because I feel like male Eivor looks a lot like him. Websy asks, will there be open field battles like we saw in the world premiere trailer?
Only a fool would meet the Dothraki in an open field.
Awesome question. I haven't seen an open field battle yet, so that's something that may be wrapped up in a major story beat, if it does exist. Rayhan asks, I see Eivor wearing a bandana in the new gameplay trailer. Is that something you got to see or hear about? I did not see or hear about any bandanas. Yasser asks, is it possible to side eject or side hop in this game whenever we feel like it? I don't think so, not in the way that you're mentioning it. I did accidentally claim that in my preview. I misidentified what a side hop is, and so you can't side hop like Unity, for example. You can't scale while hopping sideways. Jacers asks, is there a sprint button? There is, yeah. And like he said, it's very important for stealth gameplay. There is a sprint button. It's not like Origins where you are not able to control your speed outside of, how far you're pushing the joystick forward on a controller. The Game Spectre asks, do raid locations reset? I very much like the repeatable content myself. Is there any more info on the end game in general? So I think this was before Ubisoft came out with all their DLC news. There's a repeatable raid activity that's coming post-launch. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that there's not gonna be repeatable content like you're thinking of, like Odyssey, for example. Jake asks, when we raid villages or anything else, can we recruit people into our crew like in Black Flag? I think that the people you're recruiting into your crew are, that list of people is very small. I asked Darby about this. He said there's a little more than a half dozen. We already saw one named Fanir. So I wouldn't expect to be able to do this like all the time. Ritesh asks, how old was the build of this demo? I have no idea. Ubisoft doesn't tell me stuff like that. And then are Animus Anomalies mysteries or artifact types of missions? They are mysteries. Eduardo asks if there will be assassin treasure maps that leads to legendary gear and pieces of Eden. Will there be Viking tombs of past Viking heroes? And will there be assassin ceremonies where someone gets inducted into the Brotherhood? Lots of great questions. There is like a treasure hoard sort of activity that I spotted when I looked at the legend on the map and saw an entire list. So there is a treasure hoard. I'm thinking that probably has something to do with legendary, you know, like awesome pieces of gear, or maybe even Viking hero remains, something like that. And then for your last question, I'm not sure. I didn't get to see enough of the assassin stuff to know whether someone gets inducted. I'm sure that's gonna be like later in the game, like mid to late game is when we're gonna see stuff like that. Nika says, in camp, children and people greet Eivor, but Eivor can't respond. Will it be changed? Can Eivor greet people in camp? So I don't know specifically about this interaction. I do know that Eivor does respond to people in camp. It's not just a thing where Eivor never responds, but it seemed random. And for that reason, it felt, I guess, more realistic. Maybe Eivor isn't in the mood to respond all the time. OG, oh, you already asked a question, OG King Khan. One question per person, unless you put multiple in the same comment. There's a loophole here. Zroom asks, is it going to be possible to have a member of your raiders sneak with you and steal from every chest in a raid territory? Some of them require 2 people and you want to try to get it without getting detected. So for that one, I don't know the answer to that question. I do know, like from some Joraptor gameplay from the first preview, that you can sneak with your raiding party, or like you can call, or let me rephrase that. You can sneak by yourself into locations and, you know, uncheck chests and find cool stuff. But I don't think you're going to be able to open chests with 2 people without going on an active raid. I could be wrong there, but that's just not something that I've seen. And then he asks, is there going to be a stealth knockout option like in Unity where you press and hold the interact button on an unaware guard? I think that if you unequip your weapons, that might be possible, but I can't tell you for sure. SOIMN asks, will there be in-depth customization for the Yams Vikings? I'd hate to have some ugly clay-looking boar with me. Is that offensive? I've never heard that before. I don't know. It seemed like a little disappointing to me that I wasn't able to have like any sliders to change the faces of my Yams Vikings. Like even just give me like 5, something like that, and I'd be happy, or, you know, some default hairstyles. I was a little shocked by that too. So it does seem like we're getting some post-launch support for Yams Vikings. Hopefully they're going to add that stuff in after the fact, and that should be free content. Elias asks, what is the horse riding like? I remember it being stiff in the last 2. Looks like my dog just woke up from a nap. Joe, you want to take this question? No? He's too tired. So Elias asked, what is horse riding like? I remember it being stiff in the last 2. I think it's great. I think it feels great. I think some people are very obsessed and kind of laser focused on how the horse looks. And I know what you're talking about in terms of Odyssey. I thought it looked great in Origins. So it's a mixed bag. I think some of you will think it looks great and some of you will think it looks not so great. I like it. Ratik asks, what is your hope for Eivor and his relationship with the Hidden Ones? Would you like to see him become one of them, or maybe betray them at some point for the good of your clan? What a great question. Man, I have to think about this. I would say I want Eivor to do whatever is best for the clan. That might not be a popular answer for you guys. I know a lot of you are, you know, prototypical purist assassin fans. You want Eivor to be part of the Hidden Ones. But we've heard Darby say that, you know, he or she is not necessarily aligned with the Hidden Ones 100%. Like, he's just not. However, we do know that the story is set in stone, so we're not going to be able to make a choice, like betray them, for example, unless that is like part of the story. So to answer your question, I want them to do what's best for the clan. Faraz asks, is vaulting animations back? Are they back? Is there any small differences in parkour that make them feel different from Origins and Odyssey? It felt most like Origins to me. Vaulting animations are kind of there, but not in the way of like Unity. Basically, I didn't see any noticeable improvements, like big improvements in terms of parkour. The small little vaulting stuff you could do in Origins, I believe, is in there. But yeah, nothing substantial. Jaslyn asks, if you select 10 plus Yams Vikings, will they all take over your ship? I didn't get to see enough of the Yams Viking systems to tell you one way or another. Serial Killer asks, has anyone mentioned anything about present day play and if it's continuing from Odyssey? Yeah, so I got to experience an Animus Anomaly, and just to give you guys a short breakdown, it was basically like Brotherhood. There was some parkour there. I actually turned into Layla Hassan, but within England. So the whole screen kind of changed, and it looked like I was in a blocked off part of the Animus, and I was talking to some main story characters, no one that I recognize personally. But to answer your question, yeah, it is continuing from Odyssey. Darby has told us that, and that's what we should expect. Gaming King asks, do you think we get unique perks for weapons like we got in Odyssey, or the ones we saw final? Nothing you saw is 100% final, so I wouldn't hang your hat on anything you've seen in these previews, like specifically, like very minute details. But yeah, the unique perks, I think you saw them. Just the little modifiers below weapons, like you get increased speed when you're dodging with the spear. Stuff like that is where you get the unique perks from, and then you can further customize with runes. Can you say something about the Zealot Warriors? How many of them are there, and what do you get for finishing them? So I don't know how many there are. I do know that there are plenty out there though, and it's basically a carryover of the bounty merc system from previous games, the Falakes from, I think that's how you say it, from Origins. I don't know what you get from them. It'd be really cool to get unique weapons. Maybe you just collect medallions or something and bring them back for a reward. Who knows how many there will be. Mr. Shamrock asks, how big is the Norway map and why didn't they show it in the demo? I think they're saving that for story because Norway is the prologue. We know that for sure. So we start in Norway, prologue, we meet Basim and the Hidden Ones, we get the Hidden Blade, and then we go over to England. That is what we know. So I'm not exactly sure how big the map is, but I've been told, like from Raphael Lacoste, that you really want to explore Norway. There's some really cool things there. So it'll be interesting to know when we're able to go back to Norway. I didn't see anything about it in my demo. Adam says, why did they change the eagle to a raven? Is it more fitting with the setting or another reason? The raven is closely associated, I believe, with Norse mythology. Odin has a couple of ravens, and they like give him wisdom and something else. You're probably cringing if you know anything about Norse mythology. I'm just not an expert in that field, but I do know that the raven is closely associated with the Norse. Adam asks, does the new quest system do a good job of not making you travel tons of miles over and over again from quest to quest, or at least makes you do something more rewarding than Odyssey? So Adam, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily the quest system. I guess in general, it's the exploration. If you're someone that does like a less hand-holdy experience where you're the one who has to go out and find stuff for yourself and you find that satisfying, then I would say yes. I didn't feel like I was retreading the same territory because whenever I visited like a city, like Repton, for example, and I wanted to travel back and forth, I fast traveled. I just did. But Odyssey or Valhalla also gives you options to fast travel to your longship, for example. So if you go and raid a location and you're far inland and you don't want to run back, just fast travel back to your ship. It's really easy. And then on next gen, the loading times are going to be so much better to the point where it's going to be instantaneous. I can't wait for that. It's Buddha asks, is it possible to see Eivor become king or have a bigger role in the game other than being an assassin Viking? That is up to the story. From talking to Darby, I kind of took away from our interaction. I asked him, like, can you decide to conquer certain areas, or are you always seeking an alliance and peace? And he said it's mostly like the latter. It's connected to the story. So we don't have choice in that way. Like, we can't greatly impact the landscape of the conflict. It is written into the narrative. And however, in the narrative, we could become king. I don't expect that. But it is definitely something that's tied to the story. It's not something that we have control over. Ben asks, any chance of having some secret sort of awesome armor sets like Altair's armor in the Ezio trilogy? I love collecting keys and solving puzzles. I know I might be dreaming, but seeing the Hidden Ones location video got me excited. Awesome question, Ben. Thank you. Yeah, so nothing that I saw, but we've heard from reports that there are 3 arcs in the game. There's Eivor's personal story, there's the Hidden Ones versus the Order, and then there is the Viking clan and sort of them taking over England. In that second arc with the Hidden Ones and Order of the Ancients, we're going to hunt down targets and of the Order, so it's like hunting down Templars, basically. And then we're going to grab their Templar medallions and bring them back for a special reward. I'm pretty sure that that's the case. I didn't see it for myself, but it sounds like something they're saving for the full game. Derpy Kraken asks, did you experience any AC storyline? So my story picked up after we had already conquered a region, and I didn't interact directly with any assassins at all. So to answer your question, no, I did not. But you still see remnants, like elements of Assassin's Creed. I mean, this is an Assassin's Creed game. And to further elaborate, I didn't start from the very beginning, so I know that that stuff is going to be there. I know I had the hidden blade, the cloak. I see the Assassin's Bureau in my settlement. Like, I'm not worried that I didn't play specifically part of that Hidden Ones Order storyline in my demo. Michael asks if I think these Animus anomalies will live up to the truth puzzles. Darby said that they're used as an inspiration, but he's not sure if recapturing that mystery again is possible. Michael, this is you make a great point. It's kind of hard to put the genie back into the bottle and get you excited again. Sorry, we've got a scratch. That's really important. So yeah, it's tough.
3 hours later.
Okay, so my camera died in the middle of that last great question. Pro tip, if you're ever going to make content on the internet and you're doing it for 10 years, you should probably know to recharge your camera. Once again, Michael asked, do I think these Animus anomalies will live up to the truth puzzle? I think it'll be really hard to recapture that mystery. It just will be. However, at the very end of the Animus anomaly I did, there was this mysterious like round table of chairs with Isu people like sitting in them. No joke, that's what I saw. And some shadowy figure behind them was placing some Isu object and like jamming it into the back of these really futuristic chairs. No idea what's actually going on there, but it was a small snippet and it really reminded me of the truth. Deep Depeak asks, did you experience any memory corridor confessions? If yes, how were they? I want to say yes, but no. It wasn't exactly a memory corridor confession, but it was a scenario where I killed someone and I did enter kind of an animus-y realm. I can't say much more about it other than it was really cool. Superman A and B says, thanks for the videos. Thank you, Superman. My question is, can you assassinate 2 enemies at once, maybe with a skill or an ability? So I looked at all the skills and gosh, off the top of my head, I can't remember. I'll scrub through the skills and find it, and I'll look stupid on the video if there is a skill. Shammy asks, will Excalibur be a story reward or can we just go and find it? So Shammy has seen the trailer where Excalibur is in there. I have no clue. There was no mention of it. I assume it is part of some quest line, if I had to guess. Flicks and Games asks 3 questions. Well done, sir. First off, can you stealthily take down enemy forts or do you need to raid them? By enemy forts, I think if it's a formal assault, it will be loud no matter what. You can't stealthily do an assault from what I could tell. As far as other locations that might just be along the river, a raid, so to speak, every single raid location, unless it's tied to story, I found you could stealth up to. But that means that you have to jump out of your longship in advance, or you have to go on foot with your horse, and you have to initiate that yourself. And some of these locations, actually, you could go into them as like a distrust zone. So you could blend into those areas and infiltrate them that way. His next question, can hoods be worn without capes? We've already seen that one. I really don't know. Gameplay-wise, how does this game differentiate from Origins and Odyssey? It feels a lot more like Origins to me. That is the most direct comparison that I can make if you're trying to compare Assassin's Creed games. However, it's got the abilities from Odyssey, but they feel more grounded. It feels like Eivor is skilled rather than magical. Prethu asks, will there be discovery mode post-launch? Yes, that was actually just announced. I assume that they wrote that before it was. So yes, there will be. Ryan says, would like to hear more about Halfdan, one brother we never got to see. I would like to as well. The only things that I know are that he appeared in a trailer. Darby confirmed that in my interview with him. And he also said that Halfdan is kind of the stereotypical king type. Like, he's the kingly brother. He's larger than life. Everyone talks about him. We'll see multiple characters talk about him. He's up in Northumbria. That is where he's hailing from. So we will get to see Halfdan. Tiago says, how prominent will MTX be in the game, especially in the settlements? Would hate for the best things in the settlement to be locked behind a paywall, but wouldn't be surprised. I know nothing about MTX. Literally nothing. Ubisoft doesn't tell anyone about MTX, you know? We know how people feel about them. We don't like them. But I assume that they're going to be in the game, and I assume that there will be some MTX for settlement decoration. I don't know that, but it's an assumption that I'm going to make. Alex wants to know, is there anything similar to the fall damage upgrade in Odyssey, or do we take full damage from falling the entire game? There's something called break fall. It's a skill. It's a Raven skill. So you just have to navigate the constellation sort of chart for Eivor and grab that skill, and I believe it just reduces damage. It doesn't completely get rid of it. Filar says, are the rumors true where you have to sneak through towns not to get caught to blend in? Yes, the rumors are true. Yeah, so there are zones called distrust zones where it makes sense. Eivor's a Viking. The Saxons don't like the Vikings. They don't trust them. Eivor looks like a Viking, so Eivor has to wear a hood and kind of skulk around. Yes, you have to sneak through certain towns, not every town, but certain towns in order to blend in so you won't get caught, just like the classic games. It's awesome. Jonathan Doe asks 3 questions. Will the Alliance be scripted? Does the AI still meh? Does it? Do you know more about Vinland in the game? So number 1, the Alliance map is scripted, or alliances that you create in the game. Yeah, they're scripted. They are. The AI felt fine to me. No glaring issues. I would say it feels very similar to the open world games where sometimes you're like, how am I not being seen right now? But for the most part, it felt good. And then I know nothing about Vinland, which, by the way, is America. America is in the game, and we're going to access it through Volca the Seer. So that's like one of the first things that I'm going to do in the game once I unlock Volca. I'm going to go to Vinland. Gonzalo Garganta, sorry if I butchered that. Can you customize or upgrade your hidden blade? Can you have 2 of them, or is it just the one for the whole game? I do not know the answer to these questions. Evo asks, are every weapon we find always in fine quality, or are they different? Ooh, I don't know. That's a great question, though, because that means, like, is every weapon starting at the bottom tier of rarity? Because you can take your weapons to Gunnar the blacksmith in the settlement, get him to upgrade them as long as you have the required ingredients. But do they all start at the bottom tier? In my demo, I want to say they do, but then again, I could be wrong. Don Campos wants to know, will we have the ability to join or fight for the Varangian Guard? We're going to do a little Google search. Varangian Guard? This is an elite unit of the Byzantine army from the 10th to the 14th century. The members served as personal bodyguards to the Byzantine emperors. This was founded in 988 AD. So, Mr. Don, that answers your question. This game takes place at the end of the 9th century, so we will not be joining or fighting them, I don't believe. Abdallah wants to know, how do you feel about the story quality compared to those before the reboot? How is the exploration? Is it various, realistic, and deep? The story felt really good. I'm glad that I had a full arc. It's definitely different compared to before the reboot, though, to answer your question. It's hard to compare because I feel like these games are very different, and narratively speaking, Valhalla is even very different from Origins and Odyssey from what I can tell. In terms of exploration, yeah, that was my favorite part of the game. It feels like there's so much to do, so many underground areas. In terms of realism, yeah, you have Sunan, you have these, glowing icons out in the distance, but that's what I need that. I need a little bit of something to pique my interest, to get me to say, yeah, I want to go out and explore and see what that thing is over there. Rocky wants to know, is the map bigger or smaller than Origins and Odyssey? Man, it's so hard to tell. I would venture to guess that it's more like Origins. It's so hard to tell, man, in terms of scale. Like, I think even developers don't know 100% sure. I'm sure they could measure it, but that's why we never know pre-launch. Like, how big is the map? It's hard. Only unless they measure and say it's this many square kilometers do we know. But yeah, my intuition tells me from what I've played, it's more like Origins. Timo, hello Timo, wants to know 4 questions here. Any stealth editions that we haven't heard of yet? I think I pretty much showed you guys everything in terms of stealth, so nothing in that department. Any info on how old the build we saw was? Again, I would venture to guess a couple weeks to a month old. This stuff takes time for them to finalize and get ready and get in our hands. Did horse riding feel better? We kind of already answered that. Yeah, it felt great. It felt like Origins, which I still think looks great. And then in my playthrough, who am I going to choose? Male or female Eivor? I'm going to let the Animus choose. I'm picking the center option. Darby convinced me on that. It's like, yeah, I want to see how that's different, how that plays into the storyline and what impact that will make. Maz wants to know, is the new game plus in the base game? I don't know the answer to that question. I would venture to guess no, that it's going to be something they add post-launch, because that's how Ubisoft does it with, post-launch support these days. The Good Lad says, some YouTubers say, oh, wow, there's 4 questions. Some YouTubers say the graphics haven't been polished yet, and it looks drastically downgraded compared to Odyssey. Is it true? When you're talking about preview builds, you're not seeing the final version. I had, without a doubt, noticed a huge improvement on the second preview that I did. Night and day. I mean, there's so much that can improve in several months up to release, and I saw it there. It looked much better this time around. So I would say it looks as good, if not better than Odyssey, just kind of different, because you're in a different part of the world, in a different mood and aesthetic. What has been your favorite side quest in the game demo yet? That's a really tough question. I have to think about that. I think I have to give it to the Viper Egg Lady. That quest just made me laugh so hard. Underneath Letta Chester, there's an Anglo-Saxon woman who's asking you, Eivor, to deliver her Viper eggs, and you give her like 12 of them, and then she rips just the most disgusting video game fart I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's actually really cool because the people above are like, there's a lot of, heat coming from this vent. Like, what's going on in this vent? And that's basically hinting at you, the player, without directly telling you, hey, there's something below Letta Chester. You should go check it out. And by the way, I've seen a lot of these comments about my pronunciation of things. I am pronouncing it how they pronounce it in the game, and how it was presumably announced back then. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if Ubisoft is right. I know it's Leicester these days, but I'm going to call it Letta Chester because that's what they call it in the game. The Good Lad wants to know, will there be any Ezio's family version in the game soundtrack, or did you hear anywhere anything similar to it? I'm kind of the worst about audio sometimes. I don't notice it. I did not notice Ezio's family, but knowing their tradition of always including it, or most of the time including it, I'm positive that it'll be there. Are raids very similar to that of taking down enemy forts or camp areas? And really very similar all the time? I think I know what you're saying. They feel different enough. The locations feel unique. I think that's going to be a unique part of it. Some of them, like I mentioned, will be distrust zones, so you can actually engage that raid differently. You don't have to roll up with your longship and, like you guys have seen in all the gameplay. You don't have to do that every time. So it's kind of up to you to make it feel different, but the locations feel distinct. They feel different. Some of the camps are more built up. Some of them are just very makeshift and small. There's a variety in the sizes of these areas, which is cool. But of the 3 raids I've done, I think I've only done 3. I haven't done that many raids, 3 or 4 or 5. They all felt pretty similar, like generally similar. You're going to get a very similar outcome and vibe from every raid, at least, from what I've done. Riley asks, are there checklists and missions to attain 100%? This was a huge pet peeve of mine of the older games. It made no sense to me. I mean, it kind of does with the Animus. It's tied to the narrative, but it frustrated me. There are not checklists and missions. I'm happy about that. Just if you weren't clear, I'm glad. Ethan wants to know if Valhalla's story will have mentions or direct connections to previous installments of the AC franchise. Yes, it absolutely will. And Darby has told us that it'll actually tie a thread among every single game that wasn't there before. So 100% expect connections. Geronimo wants to know, will we be able to use crossbows? I've seen enemy soldiers using crossbows, but I'm not sure if Eivor will be able to use them. Also two-handed flails like those big guys. On the second one, I'm not positive. I actually have to review my skills gameplay to see if there's like a node for flails. I don't think there is, but there are one-handed flails. Who knows? There could be big flails. But for crossbows, I'm gonna say no. I don't anticipate that just because of the way that the inventory system works. I mean, there is a bow slot, so I guess it's conceivably possible, and I could be wrong there. But again, I feel like I'd see a skill for it. I think we're just sticking with the warrior, the light, and the hunter or predator bow. You know, we've got just some of those bows. I didn't see crossbows in that mix. Yinhara Prince wants to know, if the mount dies, is it permanent or can you recover it somehow? This is an important question. Gosh, I don't know. My instinct is to say it will not be permanent, but I could be wrong. That might be a realism element that they're trying to bring back. Claudia wants to know what kind of difficulty settings that we will have and other settings that will be available for tweaking. I actually never got a look at the options menu at all, not even once across both demos. That's kind of my fault, and also I'm not sure that we were allowed to record it. I do know that Ubisoft is adding a lot of settings that they've told me about, and it's pretty much what you can expect from the previous games, perhaps even more, especially in way of accessibility. There's actually an option to turn on always guaranteed assassinations. That's an accessibility option. So if you're someone like immersion, then you can turn that on. Plutoum wants to know, can you be a mercenary like you could in Odyssey? I'm gonna flat out say no. Maybe in certain contexts you can like hunt down enemies, like with the hidden ones and that whole Templar hunt, but not like Cassandra or Alexios. You're not a Mistios. Exploded Head wants to know, will there be oceans to sail through or just the rivers? I actually don't know this. I can only use the rivers in both of my demos. I wasn't able to sail out on the ocean. Actually, maybe I was in the first one because East Anglia is on the coast. I never actually tried though. I'm curious if we're gonna manually sail back to Norway. I assume not, because you're trying to deal with relatively realistic scale, and that would just take forever to sail to Norway. Nick wants to know, if you upgrade from PS4 to PS5, does your gameplay progress carry over? Yeah, Ubisoft just publicly announced Ubisoft Connect, which is like a cloud save service that links all of your game saves together, and there's even cross platform family. I don't know what you officially call that, but like if you're playing on, I think, PlayStation, you can actually pick it up on Xbox. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. It works for PC as well. So if, for example, I'm going to play Valhalla on my Xbox Series X, I've already decided that once I get it, once it comes out. But then if I want to move to PC later because I upgrade my PC, then I can do that, which is just like awesome. I love that. Umar, wants to know, will crimes like stealing and murder be in Valhalla from Odyssey? Love your vids. Thank you, Umar. Yeah, I don't think so. No. If you're caught stealing in a city, I'm sure like that'll be an issue, and the Saxons will immediately identify you as that Viking. But I think that being a Viking is the biggest crime you will commit in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, unless I'm wrong. It's not like Odyssey where, yeah, like if you're in a city and you kill a civilian, it's probably, yeah, it's bad that you murdered someone, right? And actually, I got a notification from the game. I tried to kill a civilian, and they said that killing civilians would like desync your progress, which is something, if you played the older games, you recognize that. I don't think we had that in Odyssey, unless I'm mistaken. So that's back. Aditya wants to know, what was the technical state of the build you played? Was it relatively bug-free? Yeah, I barely had any bug. I mean, I can't even think of a single bug that really affected my experience. On the first preview, I had several crashes, and that's just something like, okay, it's not finished. That's a bug. They need to fix it. This one, I didn't crash a single time, which was great. I'm actually, no, I take that back. I had one crash on this version, but outside of that, I didn't notice any bugs that like really affected my experience, which was nice. I know everyone is very apprehensive because of Unity. Even still, Unity happened in 2016. Even still, we're worried about it. and I haven't found any issues. Or sorry, 2014. I keep thinking Unity is 2016. 2014, that game is 6 years old. What? Sem wants to know, how did the combat of the game feel? Do you feel the impact of hits and finishers? Yes, and I think it's due to the camera swing. I think a lot of it has to do with the way that the camera follows Eivor around, and also how the finishers work. And I love that most of them, not all of them, are manually activated. So like stun finishers in melee and ranged are something that you activate. And then once you get your enemy's health all the way down, then you go into this really cool animation. It really brings you into the combat, and it matches all of the language that Ubisoft has used since this game was announced. It's crunchy and visceral. Jordan says, I'm sorry, man, I won't be watching any videos until after the 10th when I played it for myself, trying to minimize spoilers and experience it for myself firsthand. I'll catch up on all your content afterwards. Jordan, I just want to say thank you for your support, and I totally understand. And thank you for such a wholesome comment. Like, I really appreciate that, man, and I hope you enjoy. Jaden wants to know what my favorite sword, shield, and axe are in the game. I didn't get to experience enough of them to tell you for sure, Jaden. But I loved the greatsword in this demo. It feels very weighty, and I love slow, heavy-hitting weapons, so it felt really good in my hands. The axe in the offhand, if you're going to dual wield, guys, put the axe in the offhand, because the special attack with the bearded axe, the one-handed axe, is nuts. It's just like you're chopping down a tree or something. It's insane. Anubov wants to know, okay, love your videos. Thanks, man. I have one question to ask. What is the difference between gear upgrading and enhancement? Will we be able to only enhance gear in our settlement? We saw enhanced weapons changes the looks. How many levels does a gear will change the appearance? So the difference between upgrading and enhancing is upgrading is what you can do in your menu from anywhere in the game. You can pull up your inventory, hold down the X button on an Xbox controller, and get those small incremental improvements to the stats. That's all that does. Enhancing is what I believe, I think it's only in your settlement. I could be wrong. There might be other craftsmen out in the world in towns that can do it, but you can't do this just anywhere. Like, you need someone who provides this service in order to enhance your gear. But that is when it changes the look, but it also adds rune slots, and it increases the cap of how many times you can upgrade. Again, that's just that little thing within the inventory screen that you can do anywhere. So enhancements push the potential of your weapons, whereas upgrades actually make them better. And you kind of argue the enhancements do that too with the rune slots and with the visual upgrades. But to answer your question about how many levels the enhancing has, I believe it's 5. Don't quote me on that. I think it's 5. I don't know how many different appearances there are, though. It seemed to me that you would get them at maybe every enhancement level, but don't quote me on that. G. Will Cardiff asks, be brutally honest. Is this an AC game or a Viking game with an AC name? I have never subscribed to that way of thinking. I think that unless you are someone who played one Ezio game, never touched Assassin's Creed, didn't care about it, and then picked up Odyssey and was just, shocked by what you played, then maybe you're going to think that way about Valhalla. I don't know. But you can very clearly see that these are still Assassin's Creed games if you're paying attention. My opinion, even Odyssey. So from my perspective, no, this is an Assassin's Creed game set within a Viking world. I know I'm repeating Ubisoft PR speak. It's just the truth from what I can tell. And from talking to Darby, I am convinced, even though I've played 10 hours of the game so far, I don't know everything about it. That is the general vibe and gist that I get. Mateo wants to know, can you customize all the Vikings on your longship or just the Yams Viking? So you'll have some Viking recruits like Fenrir that you'll be able to bring with you, but you can't customize them. I kind of don't know who all the Vikings are on my longship from both of my sessions. I just don't know. Maybe I know every single one and their names. And I don't know, maybe you will be able to fill your entire longship with custom-made Yams Vikings. We do know that we're going to get some post-launch support that expands that system. But for now, I'm not positive. Comrade Adrian wants to know, will there be a lot of choices for tattoos and hair and beards to unlock? If so, I'm definitely going to try to make my Eivor look like Floki from Vikings. And then also, are you able to collect more songs and stories for your crew on the longship? Let's answer that second one, excuse me. Yes, there are some like flying paper parkour puzzles that appear on the map as an artifact activity, I want to say. If not artifact, it's a mystery. But yeah, you'll be able to collect those songs, and I assume the stories you'll get from either recruiting new Jomsviking or making new Jomsvikings, or recruiting people like Fenrir, and they will bring stories with them. Maybe just people throughout the story you'll encounter and invite them onto your longship, and you'll get to learn more of their stories. But the songs seem like a collectible activity that you'll be able to go out in the world and grab. But for the tattoos and hair and beard unlocks, yeah, there are so many options. Like, I was just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling at the merchant in the settlement. So many options there. My nitpick in my preview that I shared is that I wanted to be able to preview this stuff. Otherwise, I'm just going to look it up on the internet, and that's not as fun. So I hope they give us like a little preview window that shows you like, hey, this is what you're paying for when you buy this schematic for a beard or a tattoo. Brennan wants to know more about the Animus Anomaly, and I actually picked this one because he asked a little bit more. Does Layla say anything? I know it's parkour, but from what you saw, does it tie to the story? Yes, it ties to the story, absolutely. And Layla does speak. Layla actually appears in the world, and she's talking to like her handler. I believe it was established in Origins where like there were portable Animus versions now where you could take the technology on the go to a remote location, and now there's like assassin cells, or Animus Abstergo cells. You guys know what I'm talking about. But there's a handler and a field op who actually goes in. Layla's talking to a handler the entire time when she's doing the parkour puzzle, or when I'm doing it as her. So you're gonna get some interaction like that. So she definitely does talk. Quinn wants to know, how does the stealth feel, like Assassin's Creed 2 or Origins? It's hard to say that the stealth feels like pre-reboot, because this new engine that they've been using for 3 games now, it feels similar to itself, if that makes sense. So stealth feels like the newer games. However, Origins stealth felt good to me. This feels good like Origins stealth to me. However, you've got the one-hit assassinations with advanced assassination, that skill with the little mini game. That's completely new. So I know that's not strictly speaking stealth, but it's something you do in stealth. So that is a unique feeling in and of itself. But sneaking around feels like the newer games, I will say. But the social stealth, which is not normal stealth, I don't know if you're asking about that, that is something that feels closer to the older games, which is so cool. It doesn't feel anything like what we had in the last 2 games, which is why I've really hung my hat on that as a way that this game feels like the old AC. Mr. Mustache, great name, wants to know, is the combat as repetitive as Odyssey? I hope not. I don't think it feels as repetitive as Odyssey. I know what you mean. In Odyssey, if you used only swords, for example, you got the same, sword combo almost every single time. However, I will say that I did not pay enough time and attention in Odyssey to learn the unique combos, like how dodging into a light attack changes it versus dodging into a heavy attack, or how you could string together a light, heavy, heavy, all these different combos. Those exist in Valhalla like they did even in Odyssey. So if you are someone that explores that enough and uses absolutely every tool in your arsenal, I don't think it's going to feel repetitive. And the combat, like the way that parrying works and the fact that shields are back, feels great. I love that compared to Odyssey, how it feels more like Origins. Across the board, combat feels like Origins, whereas abilities feel like Odyssey, but not as, godly. 123 Cool Guy says, I read in a preview for the Ubisoft Forward demo that Rebecca Crane has a new VA in the Animus Anomaly. Can you confirm this, or has this been changed? I did not hear Rebecca Crane in the Animus Anomaly, so I don't know. And I can't confirm it at all. I didn't even see Rebecca. Ed Davison, my bad, wants to know, will there be exploration mode again? I actually asked Jessica and she said no, but there will be some options like exploration mode in the options menu that you can choose to flip on or off. Will there be side quests? Absolutely. Lots of side quests, but they're called world events in this game, and they're not tracked in a quest log. So you just have to find it, use your eyes to locate it, and remember where it is, and you can go back to those locations if you don't want to do it right when you find it. And then, will we be taking over the whole map? Great question. I don't know if it's the whole map. I think it's the vast majority. We basically pick each area, each region needs to have an alliance pledge, and you have to pledge to find peace in that territory. And once you've done that, you've effectively taken it over. I don't know if there are regions where we can't take over. I'm not exactly sure. Sander wants to know if you can hide your bow so you don't see it when walking. I know a lot of people want this, and I'm sorry, I don't know. I just didn't try it. I know you can hide all of your armor pieces, but I didn't see if I could hide my weapons. Mr. Requus wants to know, have you learned if there is level scaling yet? So it's kind of hard to tell. We've been told that there's no level gating in this game, but as far as like level scaling, each level has a suggested power level area. So you're supposed to be around that power in order to compete. However, I ran into a zealot that was power 90 and it just ripped me apart. But at the same time, I feel like I could have beaten it, and I was in power like 20, in like 20 to 30, that range. So to answer your question, I'm actually not positive. I assume it's going to have options that are similar to the previous 2 games. M. Hasib wants to know how much XP is needed to get a skill point, and do they increase after you get 1 skill point? Guys, I don't honestly know. It's really hard for me to tell how like experience works in this game. To me, it almost felt like you're filling the same amount of experience every single level, because your level, your power, is not tied to your experience bar at all. Just it's not tied at all from what I could tell. So the reason I'm saying that is because like spending skill points increases your global power, right? And that is what influences everything else. But it didn't feel to me that those two were connected, and I could be wrong on that. But I don't think so. The Forest Sapphire wants to know what's the difference between male and female Eivor, like story and gameplay wise. Nothing gameplay wise, but what we've been told is that they say almost the exact same things. I know that for a fact. It's probably the same thing. But we know if you let the Animus choose, then there will be certain sections of the game where there's better like DNA stream synchronization with either the male or the female version. And people are speculating what that means and what that suggests. I've heard it suggested that they are 2 different people. I don't believe that. I've heard it suggested that they're gender fluid. Absolutely disagree with that. They're just 2 separate characters. There's a male Eivor and a female Eivor, but it depends on which version of like reality that you are reliving within the Animus. So it's a lot. You guys really don't know any more than me on this front. And if you've watched my Darby interview, you know a little bit more than the average person. Mitchell wants to know if we can change the look of our weapons back to how they originally looked if we don't like the upgrade. Ooh, I don't even know. Maybe? Andre wants to know, will the cloth physics be improved and ironed out? A lot of people have pointed that out in the demo, and all I can think of is that this is something that is, you know, they're actively working on, because it does affect the, you know, you see it. It's very clear. Like, if you're riding on a horse, you know, the cape doesn't look great. That's just how I feel. And that looks like a bug. That's obviously not intentional. No one said we want our cape to look exactly like that. So I'm hoping that it will be ironed out. Literally. King of the North.
The King of the North
wants to know what system I was playing on. Any idea what the biggest differences between versions will be? I'm not positive. I'm assuming like the typical things that you'd expect different between the PC and console versions will be there. What I was playing on was a very high-end PC. I know that for a fact, but I was using a controller. Shaheen wants to know, how do the raids become more complex as the game goes on? Does parkour feel? Some say it doesn't feel very precise. Or how does it feel? So parkour, I'll answer that one first, feels most like Origins to me. And Origins actually does feel precise. Some of you may disagree. It's not like Unity, but it gets the job done. And I don't think it's like bad necessarily. I think it gives you a lot of freedom to climb whatever you want, which is not something you really had in the same way. And it fits more within the open world new wave of AC that we've been getting the last couple of years. So that's how I would say parkour feels. As far as raids, I wouldn't expect like a linear progression. I think it depends on the area. If you're in an area that's going to be more heavily guarded, that maybe has a higher Saxon presence, like maybe Wessex with King Alfred, I haven't visited there. I know nothing about it, but I can only assume that there's going to be more presence there than Mercia or East Anglia, the two places that I have been. So I think it's more dictated by the region that you're in. Simon says, most important question, what was your favorite part so far? Thank you for that question, Simon. I would say just exploration in general was my favorite. Just getting lost in the world and using Sunan to kind of scout out locations and then hopping on my horse or using my longship and then just stopping whenever I wanted to explore. Whenever you do these previews, you're kind of in a rush because you want to get through the content that they have for you. So you don't have a lot of time to just, mill around and go at your own pace. But the small moments that I let myself do that were my favorite. Husky wants to know, are there daggers or twin blades in Valhalla like the ones we had in Origins and Odyssey? I know exactly what you're referring to, and personal experience, I didn't find any daggers, but I did see in a Joraptor video that there are daggers, and the special ability is almost a copy-paste from those games, which that kind of disappointed me. It's the attack where you hold LB, which is right bumper on Origins, and I can't remember for Odyssey, but it's the one where you jab and kind of take a big lurch back. It's a very interesting looking move. It's like a swipe and dodge backwards, and you can use it kind of as a dodge. That is what happens when you have a dagger in your offhand. But to answer your question, there are daggers. I don't know about twin blades, but there are daggers. Rita Brata wants to know, what are the animus glitches? We kind of already went over that. Can you play as a Templar? We don't know. That's a big story thing, but I assume no. And then can you fight giant creatures in Asgard? I think there's going to be some crazy mythological stuff. We already saw a hint at Fenrir, who's a giant wolf. I assume we will be, but I don't know any of the questions that you asked really for sure beyond like the animus glitches and what I can say about that. Raven says, what does the weather system in the game look like? Will it be truly dynamic and make sense? Talking to Raphael Lacoste, it felt like he described every single area as having its own biome. And I assume, he didn't say weather, but I assume that translates to weather. So I think I remember some light rain happening in my recent preview in Mercia, but I did not, or I had a heavy rain in East Anglia. So I did feel a difference there. And East Anglia was foggy and hazy, whereas Mercia was more like fall, and it was just kind of dry. It was some very light rain, every now and then. So will it be truly dynamic? I don't know what truly dynamic means, but I think as close to reality for the region as possible. DJ Steph wants to know, are there any other Sons of Ragnar in the game like Bjorn? I don't know about Bjorn. I do know that Halfdan's in the game, which we talked about a little bit earlier. Nordegren wants to know, is there going to be complex parkour in major cities like York? When you say complex parkour, there's not going to be an expansion of like mechanics, obviously. It's just going to be opportunity, right? That's the difference. And Ubi has told us that there will be. I did notice there is more parkour in the cities that I visited in my demo. Templar and Leicester. Those are the two that I visited. I climbed more towers. There were more buildings. It was kind of difficult to parkour between buildings because they were spread out, and it just felt more natural that way. It didn't feel like buildings should be closer together to therefore facilitate more parkour. But that may change in cities like York, like bigger cities with a higher population. I didn't get to experience what I think is the biggest city, which will be like Jorvik or London, maybe. I don't know what London looks like at that time. Ben wants to know, are the facial animations done for release, or are they planning to somehow upgrade it? I think the facial animations looked great, and that's something that I said in my most recent preview. I noticed a sizable difference between the first preview back in July to this one in October. They looked great. So if you're not satisfied with what you've seen, then you probably won't like them. Honestly, I don't think they're going to upgrade that much from what I got to play. Hans wants to know if we'll be seeing smoke bombs make a return. Yeah, but they're tied to an ability like they were in Origins. It's a specific skill. I think it's Assassin's Cantrip, I believe. It's a Raven skill, and it's when you dodge or attack, you can drop one. Something like that. Again, very similar to what we had in Origins. God, my throat. Oh, so many questions. Sumia Deep wants to know, how similar is Valhalla to The Witcher 3? Not like, it's not a direct comparison. Valhalla is an AC game. It's one of the newer AC games, right? It feels more like Origins and Odyssey than anything. The lighting and stuff really reminds me of places like White Orchard in The Witcher 3. East Anglia really reminded me of the beginning area in The Witcher 3. So I think in terms of tone and sort of mood and style and visual aesthetic, it feels like it. And maybe Dark Ages England feels gritty like the fictional places in The Witcher 3. You'll probably draw some parallels there. But that's kind of where it stops. I don't think there's a ton, like, besides just being an open world with loot, you know, and RPG elements. It feels like it's in the same genre, I can tell you that. But yeah, not like a copy or anything like that. Ooh, this is a great question. Rosie wants to know, is there a canon order to the story, or do you just play each area's arc when you've got the power level to do it? Or is there an overarching narrative and the local arcs are just side quests? Great question, Rosie. I talked to Darby, and I think the canon order goes like this. So you'll start with probably one area, and that's going to be probably Grantisbridge Shire, unless that was just for the preview that I played. Then you'll have options. You'll go to either one territory or another. And so that choice there, probably whatever you do is considered canon. It doesn't matter. You can do one or the other. And then once you complete those two, that'll unlock another set. And so that's kind of how it works. I don't think there's a specific canon order to those small decisions that you can do. And that extends to quests as well. I had a quest that let me go to one town or the other first. And the dialogue actually changes depending on your choice, which is really cool. Robbie wants to know, is it possible to recruit people for the settlement like AC3? Kind of. And yes, I think they're more tied to narrative in the main story. I know we had some people kind of show up here and there for the main story in AC3, which is really cool. You would see these recruits pop back up and they didn't just disappear. I appreciated that. But like Chaelbert, for example, that is a character that you meet on the Sons of Ragnar story arc in my preview in Leicestershire, that region. And he goes back to your settlement. I don't know that he's going to be like a craftsman per se, but he's going to play a role in the larger narrative moving forward. So kind of, but maybe in a different way. Leon wants to know, or Leon Diagram, are the raids similar to the naval forts in Black Flag where you can fast travel to them and they're pretty much yours after they're conquered? Wow, I actually don't know the answer to this question. I don't know if you can fast travel to them. I do know that after you clear them, they do disappear from the map. Now, we do know that there's like repeatable raids content coming post-launch. That I think is going to be the kind of replace those raids where you can do the raids again and kind of there's a progression to it. I'm not exactly sure how it will work, but yeah, I think they're pretty much years after they're conquered, but you can't like do anything in those locations. Like, I don't think that like in Black Flag, a merchant would appear once you captured a fort. I don't think that's going to happen in Valhalla. Akash wants to know, how is the gore? It's pretty good, man. It's gory. You can chop off limbs, arms, heads. There's finisher moves. It's brutal. Oh my God, there's so many. I'm not even close to the end. This is insane. Why did I do this? Okay, from now on, I'm just going to answer one question per person. I don't know why I didn't do that until now. Axel wants to know, can you change the FOV? I couldn't tell from my demo. Medlinator wants to know, is it possible that your Vikings have permadeath as an option? I think it's possible. I'm not sure that it's in the game. I don't know, but I think that could be a thing. Denny wants to know if the shield has an attack animation if it's in the left hand or the off hand. I think it might be part of the combos. Like if you have an axe in your right, in your main, and a shield in your off, that when you're chopping, it might be part of that combo. But to your point, like you can't hold the special ability button LB with just one shield in your left hand and have a shield attack. I noticed that. So it's strictly used to block. When you have a shield in your offhand, it is to block, not to attack. And that may change. That was for the small shield. I only got to experience the typical Viking classic round small shield. Doom Dio wants to know, what is your favorite dinosaur? I mean, that has nothing to do with the video, but if I had to go for it, it's probably like a raptor. I like raptors. The Pimp Hand Strong wants to know, is there an option where you can put the hidden blade under your arm? I don't think so. It's going to be on top. That's what Eivor would want. Cyber Caliber HD wants to know, how does the leveling system work in comparison to Odyssey? So for that one, it's different because every time you level up, you spend points in your skill tree, and that raises your overall global power. Whereas in this game, your pieces of gear do not actively contribute to your global power. It is just your skills. So it's not about getting gear that has like a 29 on it so you can be level 29. It's about leveling up, getting those skill points, and spending those skill points so you can be global power 29. And then that affects everything. That affects your weapons. And if you have a lower tier rarity weapon, that's not going to be as good as the higher tier rarity weapon. So they're kind of detached where before they were combined. Mary Catherine Bunn wants to know, can you travel back to Norway at any given time, or to explore, or is it locked behind set piece sections related to the story? I don't know. Short answer, but long answer, we've been told that we can go back after a certain point in the story. I think we were told that very early on in an interview. I couldn't do it during my demo. And I assume that after a certain point in the story, we'll be able to go back and forth as we please, but that's just an assumption. And Heck wants to know, what's with the dummy standing around Ravensthorpe? That's a callback to the classic Ezio games where you could test out your damage. So if you wanted to, say, build out your Eivor a certain way, you can see how much assassination damage you can do with a particular build before going back into the world. It's actually pretty cool. Dr. Kumar wants to know, how does it feel different to Odyssey? It feels more grounded in reality. It's not a simulator. It's not a realism type of game where it's trying to be super realistic, but at the same time, it makes certain changes to where it feels like you're playing a Viking within that world that doesn't have magical powers. Whereas Odyssey was, you're playing as a demigod with a magical spear thing, Spear of Leonidas, and you're able to do crazy stuff. You can't do that in this game. You're a very skilled Viking, and that's how it feels in the combat department. But, I mean, there's so many other things to talk about. I'll just stick with that. Spit33, did I already answer one of your questions? I'm going to answer another one. You might have gotten me, sir, because it's a good one. As in mini games in and around the world, do you know if Snafletol is played? Oof, we're going to Google that. This is a popular game among medieval Scandinavia, Nordic and Celtic strategy board game. Wow. I don't know. The answer is no. I don't know for sure. It could be there. We know that Ireland is going to be in the expansion, so that's cool. But it could be even in Norway. But I didn't get to play Norway. Game Freak wants to know, is there two-handed hammers as a weapon? Game Freak, I believe so. I didn't get to find them, but yeah, I think so. Settled Eagle wants to know, how often do you use the longship? Constantly. It is a very important element. You'll get like a story beat, and you'll be like, Eivor, go to this city and meet me. And then you got to meet them. So you got to get there either by horseback or by ship or by fast traveling. And longship is definitely the most fun, in my opinion. You can summon it from anywhere as long as you're near a river. And then it's really fun to just take in the environment while you're using the longship. I really, really like that part of the game. DD wants to know if it has a lot of ambient and exploration music. Yes, it does. And from what I heard, it's great. The soundtrack in this game is going to be awesome, guys. Alan wants to know, what's the biggest change from Odyssey? And this is a tough one because there's so many different things. I would say the method of exploration is the biggest thing. It's less handholdy. There's not a billion icons on your screen at all times. It is very much a thing that piques your interest in mystery. I know I've probably repeated that a billion times in this Q&A, but man, it's a big change. Scott wants to know, how difficult is it to find gear or side content? Not very. The gear is less out there. You're running into gear a lot less often. So I actually talked to Quest Mode, my fellow podcast host for Preloaded. If you guys haven't started watching it, it's great. We post it every week, and it's such a... I love it. I love our show. But yeah, he said that he didn't find a single weapon in his 6 hours, which I think is an anomaly. I don't think that's going to be most people's experience. But Side content and gear is out there if you look for it. If you're going after those little icons in the distance and you're like, hey, I want to see what that is, you're going to find something there. It's not difficult either. Like the game tells you there is something there and you'll find something. Cutsal Limon wants to know, can Yam's Vikings follow us in the open world or do they just join raids and what are they actually doing? Yam's Vikings help you in battle. I don't know if you can talk to them. I couldn't in my demo, but honestly, I don't know if I tried. So you can call your Vikings to come help you in combat as long as you're close to a river. There's actually a range for that. I didn't test the exact range, but you can pull up on your quick tool wheel and pull out the horn, and you can pull that thing out and blow it, and your Vikings will appear as long as you're close-ish to a river. So they don't just join you for raids in the sense of like rolling up in your longship and activating a raid like that. But I guess it technically is a raid if you blow your horn to call them to you. So in that way, yes, they do just join you during those battle combat areas. They can't just like walk around with you in the open world. Jacob wants to know, how many buildings can we make in our settlement and how many people can we recruit? Is it any person or do we have to meet people? They're very specific people that you have to meet. It's not just anyone. So it's not like Watch Dogs Legion where anyone can do anything. Not like that. But in terms of how many buildings, I don't know. I only saw level 3 of Ravensthorpe. So there were like a dozen buildings there. There was plenty to do. I didn't even see everything. So who knows what the upper limit is. It's kind of exciting. Alejandro asks a bunch of questions, but I'm going to answer. Can our settlement be randomly attacked or is it always part of the main story? I don't know. That would be interesting. Is it like a Fallout 4 scenario where a settlement needs your help? I'm sure a lot of people would cringe at the idea of that. But we'll see. I'm going to actually guess and say that maybe at one point in the story, our settlement will be attacked. Probably part of the story, not random. JMC wants to know if you can change camera angles. I feel more immersed when it's like Origins than Odyssey. The camera angle to me, yeah, it's tough. I think if you put it side by side, it actually looks more like Odyssey. But in this game, it didn't bother me as much. I get what you mean, though. I like it more in Origins. But I didn't see the options menu. I didn't know, and I didn't ask that question. Jake wants to know, will we become an assassin? That's what I really care about. Oh, boy. I mean, if you thought Edward wasn't enough of an assassin in Black Flag, then you're probably going to be disappointed in Valhalla. But if you thought Edward was enough of an assassin, even if he's not like officially inducted with a ceremony and doesn't even become one until after the credits roll, then I think you'll be fine and satisfied with this. He may become, or she may become, a full-fledged assassin. I don't know. A809AA says, does the stealth assassiny part feel good? I assume. Does it feel basic or better than the last 2 titles? Because a lot of creators didn't feel like an actual assassin. Do you think it's true or they just don't know how to play? Wow. Yeah, they don't just know how to, they have no idea how to play, man. So for me, it feels more assassin-y than Odyssey. It feels as assassin-y as Origins. And the fact that you can social stealth around actually makes it feel more assassin-y than Origins. Yeah, the fact is that you are both an assassin and a Viking. Like, you get that play style if you want it with stealth, but you also get the Viking thing. But people need to wrap their heads around the fact that Eivor is going to identify, I feel like, the majority of the game as a Viking first. And that does not bother me, just like it didn't bother me with Edward Kenway. Quan says, how do you think about the fact that we can't assassinate the Zealot? Do the devs have a reason behind it? I actually don't know that you can't, but I'm assuming you watched a video that told you that. I'm okay with that, man. If they're like really skilled, or they're wearing like armor over their neck, I don't know. That really doesn't bother me. They're supposed to be tough fights, and I want to have that sort of Dark Souls boss type encounter with enemies in this game. And if it's the Zealots, then that doesn't bother me. Elijah wants to know, how big is the power skill tree? I actually revealed that whole thing in my preview. It's actually not as big as you would think. I think there's like 45 total skills, and then that's main skills. Those are the big icons. And then there's like a billion smaller ones. I don't even know, like 500. Maybe less than that. John wants to know if devs use trial players from different areas and play styles. I'm not going to read the rest of that comment, but to answer your question, Ubisoft and every other developer uses a lot of different kinds of players for QA testing. That's what it's for. It's to try and make these modes and these difficulties as accurate as possible for what they're describing, and also as accessible for as many different players as possible. So John, I would not worry. And also with the added accessibility options, I mean, I think almost every kind of gamer is able to play games these days, and I think that's awesome. O'Hara wants to know, can we change the color or appearance of the outfits? That's interesting. I don't remember being able to change the color. I'm not actually positive on that. But like you can swap different pieces and kind of make them cohesive and together, but I don't know that you can like dye the fur or the leather or do anything like that. Kind of a same question. Nikai wants to know, can you change your clan color? I'm actually not positive on that. You can change like your longship sails, but the clan color is like the Valhalla green, like the seafoam green, the same green that I use for my branding. So yeah. Nur wants to know, did you get to X-ray assassinate anyone? I did not. I believe that's a skill, and I did not unlock it, so I didn't do it. We got a couple salty people, so I'm just gonna call them out here on my Q&A. Safkat says, this is gonna be one of the worst AC games of all time, even worse than Odyssey. Why are you commenting on my post? And then we have Brandon, who says, why do you still play this dumpster fire franchise? Because I enjoy it. Turns out I like dumpster fires, man. DS Mitra asks, what kind of changes in modern day can we see, as I would love to see Layla Hassan become an obsessed and demented antagonist in the near future. Whoa. That's interesting, DS. But to answer your question, she looked a little different. Like her facial model seems similar, but her hair is down, so that's kind of different. I don't know if that's how it was in Odyssey or not. I think it was up, but I don't know if she'll be obsessed and demented. We'll have to see. Goddle asks, can the combat be improved? I mean this as a critique and a question. He doesn't like it because it's unrealistic and it's hitboxy and junky and cartoony. A far cry from more grounded combat. Yeah, I don't. If you've seen the combat so far and you're like, I hate the way this looks, it may not be for you, straight up. I still want to say that it feels different when you play the game, just like any game. But if you're someone who can like look at combat and be like, I don't like this, then you're probably not going to like it. And it's not going to be much different from what I played. Rob says, or asks, sounds stupid, but is there a full day-night cycle, for example? Daytime villagers go about their business and sleep at night. Not a stupid question, Mark. Rob, sorry, you just turned into Mark. Rob, great question. There is a full day and night cycle. I don't know if the citizens follow it, though. That was the thing in Origins, right? And maybe even Odyssey. I don't know that level of detail is in there, but there is a full day-night cycle, like for what you see in the world that you're in. And you can meditate to pass the time. Oh my God, I'm at the end. There's 4 more questions. I may or may not pick them, but I can see the end. Gamer says, jayvee. Hey, man. My biggest worry is that you're playing Origins or Odyssey in a different location. I like how it looks. I just don't want to feel like I'm replaying the previous 2 games. Did I feel like I was just playing Origins or Odyssey in a different location? No. And I didn't feel that way about Odyssey Odyssey after having played Origins. I just don't subscribe to that mindset. I don't feel like I'm playing a different game in the same game in a different place. But if that's how you feel, especially from Origins to Odyssey, then you might feel it with Valhalla. I don't know. That's not how I feel. Random asks, does it feel more like the pre-Origins games than Origins and Odyssey? No, it feels more like the newer games because it's made within a newer version of the engine that feels like those games. So you'll be able to see like parallels there. But yeah, the addition of social stealth, the fact that the assassins are playing more of a role, that stuff, it feels more like the older games, like the social stealth. That's just straight up not in Origins and Odyssey, but it is in this one. Same thing with guaranteed one-shot assassinations. You got the mini game, but you can, again, turn on the accessibility option to have them guaranteed, and that was not in those games. And finally, we're going to end with perhaps the best question. I don't want to play favorites, but Josh asks, does the game feel like a good compromise between the grounded and immersive qualities of Origins with the deeper RPG mechanics and customization of Odyssey? What a great question. Josh, yeah, it does. It feels like a great compromise. It's a nice sweet spot. I think if you liked both Origins and Odyssey, I think you'll really like Valhalla because it does a bit of both. But yes, the grounded, immersive qualities of Origins you absolutely feel in Valhalla, which I love because I prefer Origins personally. But like the deeper RPG and customization, it's there. You can do that stuff more so than you could in Origins. So yeah, it definitely does. All right, that's the end of the Q&A. I said I'd answer every question. I tried my best and I avoid repeats. So if it didn't answer yours, it's just because I saw one before it that was already asked. So apologies on that, but hope you guys enjoyed this ridiculous video that I've just made. My God, I'm gonna go rest my voice. But before I do, I just wanna thank you guys so much for your support through all of this Valhalla stuff. We have a whirlwind, crazy, just, so many games are coming out. So many previews, so many review codes, guys. I can't even begin to tell you. I'm not allowed to tell you. You're gonna wanna stay tuned for all of the stuff coming on my channel very soon. So make sure you're subbed. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. Click the notification bell so you receive notifications when I upload a new video. Also, follow me on social media. I never plug it. Twitter, Instagram. Those links are in the description, but I'll put them on the screen too because I never talk about them. I'm trying to grow those as well. Same with my Discord server. We have a Discord server. So if you're someone who watched the end of this video like a crazy person, watched everything, and want to talk more Assassin's Creed Valhalla even still, we have a dedicated AC Valhalla channel on my Discord server. So join up, start chatting. It's a fun time over there, great community. Big thanks to my supporters, Grass, David, Kamal, Casey, Matthew, Spyro, JVO, John, Lilman, Brock, Tia, Level 42, Ryan, and Nos for supporting the channel. If you want to support me further, click the join button below this video. In exchange for your support, you'll unlock custom badges and emotes to use in chat. So please check the link in the description to learn more. And that's it. I'm gonna go nap for 5 years until Valhalla comes out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.